Always our pleasure to catch up with. Our next guest is our guy, Joe Sloan, LSU offensive coordinator. Coach, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How y'all doing?
Doing fantastic. Sitting up here getting excited for the football season already in May because that's what we do here in South Louisiana. I know you've got like one more welcome party. I think, 18 players may be coming over the next couple of days. And then I'm sure you're excited because you can finally, okay, here's the team, here's who it is, and let's go to work.
Yeah, I think, we'll add the last few pieces. Just kind of as a change in college football, probably after, I guess, really COVID, seemed like after COVID kind of started that. A lot of our guys get here in January, which is nice. So spring actually gets you a chance to really see what you got. But I think we'll get a couple more pieces. Excited to get a few guys in. Philip and JT, two young guys. Can't wait to get them in here and see what they can do and add them to the group.
Coach, we were talking about, the depth on this team, and you brought veteran players out of the portal that were there in spring practice. But one of the cool things for me, like when I went out to spring practice, the guys that were already here weren't just going to give the job up. Like, there's some real competition. Like, even though you brought in really good players out of the portal, it was kind of cool to see everybody say, you know what, like, we're all fighting for this job. We're not going to just lay down. And that competition in spring practice, at least from what I saw the couple of days I was out there, like, it was heightened more so than I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I think that's the thing when you lose some guys who have been kind of solidified starters, and you have some really good guys in your program, and then maybe you add some different pieces from different places, and there's just an opportunity where there's no one has this job locked up. You got the opportunity to just go out and prove who you are and show what you're all about. And it's about the consistency day in and day out, taking your talent and putting it to work out there on the practice field. So I think you saw a lot of guys doing that, right? And these guys work hard year round for those type of opportunities. And if you're recruiting the right guys, that's what's going to happen.
Coach, how big was that bowl prep for the offensive line? Because they got 15 practices, and Miles Frazier, like, he stuck around. He almost felt like a coach right there on the field with them, and it just felt like such a valuable experience for those players. And then, Coach, they go out against a good Baylor front, and they played really well.
Yeah, I thought that was massive. I mean, we won't make this morning about the bowl games in college football nowadays, right? But but I think the benefit of it was you had a lot of our current team right out there playing together, which I think was huge, right? And especially from an offensive front standpoint, like you talked about. Some of those guys, we had 4 guys who started here for a long time, so there wasn't necessarily that many opportunities for different times to play. And I think some of those guys got some really valuable playing time in a big game, right, against a really good opponent. And that kind of experience, just to be able to take a breath going into game one, I think is huge for them. And I think they proved a lot, right? I think they proved a lot with how they performed.
Now, Coach, last year, very explosive offense, 19th in total offense in the entire country, but every offense is going to be a little bit different. So, like, how would you describe the personality of this year's offense? Is it speed? Is it power? Is it versatility? Like, I know that thing is still being built a little bit, but based off what you saw in the spring, like, what are you expecting maybe moving forward?
I think as you look, I think we're definitely a fast offense, right? Yeah. We have speed all over the field, and I think the important thing will be is to be able to use that to our advantage to create misdirection and create issues for the defense. And I think that's where we're going to start. I think what we've done a good job of, and really with Trades and Bauer and those guys, is having the ability to create some different formations and do some different things, and some of the different pieces on offense to use in multiple ways to get different looks to the defense. And I think our guys have really bought into that to be able to add, to maybe some of the things that we've already been doing, which I think will be really exciting.
Now, Coach, when you say different formations, the I formation is still available if you want to use it.
I know. We need to get you out there.
Hey, I'll have to teach them how to do a 3-point stance, though. I'm not even sure they would know how to do that anymore, Coach.
Hey, you never know. You know what? The touchdown pass to Trades in the bowl game, we were in the I formation, right? That was now he ththrew it. So,
That's okay. Hey, look, I don't care if you throw it. Look,
yeah,
we can catch too.
I know.
Obviously, like, talking offense, talking what you did last year, talking about what maybe it's going to look like this year. I would assume like it just makes it so much easier when you walk into a meeting room and number 13 sitting there. And Garrett was so good a year ago, obviously. And look, any new start is going to have some growing pains. But even like when there was like a tougher stretch for him, I don't even want to call it a tough stretch because I thought he played so well a year ago, but a tougher stretch, like he still found his way in the end and finished the season strong. So what's it like with him coming in from year one to year number 2? We always talk about it at that position. That's like the most important jump from year 1 to year 2, even though he had a really solid year number 1.
Yeah, no, I think that's the key thing, right? And he and I have talked a ton about this. He was as prepared as he could be and had developed as much as he could possibly develop in order to be prepared to play. And then there's experience and development you have to get from play, right? And there's some situations that happened in the season that now he's aware of how those things transpired, within the way he plays the game. And then practicing and preparing year round to make sure you can avoid some of the negatives, right, and highlight your strengths. And I think that's what he's doing. He's been able to really watch and dive into every bit of his film from the last year. And now, right, take that into spring with having a really good plan on exactly what he wanted to improve on, and what we wanted him to improve on in all the different facets of what we do. And I think that's what, when you watch him really from January up until spring ball, that's what he did. And then we would kind of reset during spring ball and say, okay, this is what's really getting better. This is what, okay, we need to adjust and maybe shift our focus, or hey, well, let's look at our footwork here, or let's look at what we're thinking about here. Something else maybe rare to said a little bit. But I think you just see a calmness and a understanding every day of exactly what he needs to do. And I think that's the piece that experience brings you that is hard to have until you actually play. Because playing situational football and different things that happen, they just, as much as you practice, all those things don't come up, right? So I think he's really dove into them, and I couldn't be more excited about him and what he's done. And then the way he's shown leadership, I think that's carried over into his leadership and just a consistency day in, day out of what's to be expected. And I think that's carrying over to the other guys.
Yeah, and Coach, you start talking about what he's done, but also like what he has this year working with him. And last year the receivers were really, really good, but then you get those guys, most of those guys back this year, and then you add 2 guys through the portal. And like I truly believe Aaron Anderson might be one of the most underrated players in the country. Like when people talk about the LSU receivers, like he should be the name that everybody talks about. He was the leading receiver a year ago. Like this feels like one of the most talented rooms in the country, and one that's still trying to figure out like what the pecking order is going to be, but because everybody's like worthy of getting playing time.
Yeah, I think a lot of guys are going to get opportunities to help this football team compete for a championship, right? That's what you want. And that's what our whole focus is guys being their absolute best to help us have a championship offense, right? To help our football team win a championship. That's the key. Right, and that's the way they're looking at it. I'm excited about all the different guys. I think, you talked about Aaron. The way that he's taken from, last spring, right? He was kind of an unproven commodity going in, and he was competing with a lot of different guys. And where was he going to fit? And took advantage of some different opportunities, and then really took off from there. But I think you see just a different Aaron this offseason and how he approaches every day, how he's taking care of his body, how he's attacking practice. I couldn't be more proud of him. Being vocal, I mean, he's been awesome. So it's been fun to see. But there's so many guys in that room that I think are going to have great years. And Nuss has done a really good job of kind of working around and working with all of them. And I think this summer, the spring was huge for us, and the summer will be big for us. But I couldn't be more excited about the talent and speed and all the different types of players that we have on the perimeter.
Catching up with LSU offensive coordinator Joe Sloan here on OTB. Coach, let's talk about the best position, the running back position. Obviously, Caden Durham last year, what he did, and he was banged up, but he still fought through it, and he had a really good year, one of the better freshmen in the entire SEC, regardless of position. You mentioned one already, but you're bringing in some young players, and Caleb obviously still there as well. So it's a young room, but it's a very talented room.
It is, and what Caden was able to do last year, and for just maybe the public, you would just see, okay, Caden's a freshman, and you treat him like any other freshman, and you watch him and you go, oh wow, he's doing such great things for a freshman, for a true freshman. But I would add this: I mean, he didn't get here till the summer, and so many freshmen in college football today early enrolled, right? And he was a track star in Duncanville, so he finished out his track season and came over in the summer. And what he was able to do and pick up in the summer, carry over, I think it speaks to really, one, the program he came from, but how he handles himself mentally, and how he carries himself, his maturity. But for a true freshman in the SEC to go out and play the way he did and play through some of the different injuries he was dealing with, he was pretty dynamic. So I can't wait for for him to be able to stay healthy throughout the year, and what type of runner he can be week in, week out when he's feeling a little bit better. Because I thought he was already outstanding last year, but I think he brings so much to the table. He's able to slash and beat people with speed. He's also able to drop his pads and be physical when he needs to. They go all the way back to that run versus South Carolina on third down. When he split he hit the gap, and when he split those two defenders down the field, that was a pretty impressive run. There's not a lot of guys in the country that do that. So I couldn't be more excited about him. And then, the different guys. Caleb had a really good spring, and Harlan Berry, watching the cutups yesterday, the last few days of spring, he did some really good things. And I know he's, a lot of growth goes into this summer.
Right.
Coming off that, he knows what's expected now. He knows what it feels like. And I think we'll have a great August out of him. So couldn't be more excited about all of them, including JT getting in and getting rolling. And I think we got a lot of different pieces, right, that can carry the football and do different things. And that's going to be the challenge, right, is getting the right guys the ball into certain situations and letting them go make plays, right? Because that's the key. We got to go make plays. We got to break tackles and make explosive plays. That's what scores points. But we're going to put it in those guys' hands and give them the opportunity to go do that.
Yeah, and then I love the diversity you talked about quickly there with the tight ends, and like bringing in multiple tight ends, one from Oklahoma, one from A&M, and I've caught up with some of their former head coaches just to ask them about them, and then they love them as players, and now they're here in Baton Rouge, and then you've got a unicorn in Trey'Dez Green, so like even those players are going to be able to add value, certainly catching the football, but in the run game as well.
With Bauer and Donnie, who both came in from different places and played a lot of football, to add with Trey'Dez, just their ability to create really a lot of different issues for the defense, where they can, all of a sudden they can get down in on the edge, right? They can flex out, and are athletic and can create matchup issues on the perimeter. I think there's, the opportunities are endless for those guys, and I think a lot like what we, did with Mason in the past. But I think just with Trey'Dez's growth, obviously Bauer coming in, his experience, Donovan's experience, but then Trey'Dez's growth coming from his freshman year to his sophomore year. And I think you got to see a little bit of a glimpse of that as the year went on, right? And especially in the bowl game. That creates opportunities, right? Opportunities to challenge defenses and make them do different things, to where you can attack them. And we'll use those guys to the fullest.
All right, last one, Coach. Before we let you go, we do appreciate the time. Somebody that you and I both know very well has joined the LSU coaching staff, coaching defensive line, Kyle Williams, who I'm sure you've run into a time or two when you were both in Ruston, Louisiana. Have we seen the fiery Kyle Williams that we all know and love yet on the practice field?
Man, the 3-1 great.
That's right.
Kyle's been outstanding. He and I got to be friends when I was up at Tech, and kind of when he was really retired at the end of his career back home a little bit. What a fantastic human being. Just a great person, great teacher, outstanding motivator.
Yep.
He's in it for the right reasons, and he's all in. And for somebody who's accomplished all the things that he has in this game, then with to get into coaching and be all in, and you'd never know it. I mean, he's humble, he gets after it, and he has so many stories and so much experience to share with those guys, and pour into them. And I think he's been a huge addition to our staff. He's been a huge addition to our players, and I think that'll show right in the fall. I think he'll in critical moments. But no, he's been fantastic, and if you know Kyle, just a great personality, great person, and that fire shows up. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, look, that is someone I have heard give a pregame speech when we were both at LSU. I've played against him in the NFL. I would just tell anybody, just make sure that you're on Kyle's good side, because my man was intense and always ready to go. Cannot wait to see how that translates to the LSU defensive front. Coach, you're the man. We appreciate your time as always. I know you've got a busy kind of schedule with all these new players coming in. It's never really an off time, certainly in the month of June. So we certainly appreciate you hopping on with us.
Well, absolutely, Jake. I appreciate you, and